Imagine this. It's a sunny December afternoon in South Africa. The kind of day that feels warm with possibility. You're 27, it's the start of summer, and you've got your whole life ahead of you. That was Alison Botha's reality on December 18th, 1994. She'd spent the day doing ordinary things: shopping, grabbing lunch with a friend, running errands, laughing, smiling, alive. Later that evening, Alison dropped her friend off and returned to her apartment in Port Elizabeth. She lived just a few blocks from the beach. That night, she parked her car outside her flat, where streetlights flickered and cicadas hummed in the trees. It was peaceful, normal. Until it wasn't. As Alison gathered her things to head inside, a man she didn't know suddenly approached her car. He had a knife. And everything changed in an instant. The man forced his way into the driver's seat, knife pressed to her ribs, and told her to move over. Calmly, but with the cold authority of someone who had done this before. He told her he wouldn't hurt her if she did what he said. But this was no robbery. He drove her out of town, past familiar streets and into the outskirts of the city where streetlights faded into shadows. And no one knew she was missing. The man driving Alison's car said his name was Clinton. He talked to her like a friend, asking her questions. What did she do for work? If she had a boyfriend? She answered carefully, trying to stay calm, trying to survive. But she could feel it. Something terrible was coming. They pulled off the main road and down a deserted dirt path. There, in the darkness, another man was waiting. He got in the back seat. Alison would later learn their names: Franz Dutoit and Thunes Kruger, two men who had raped before, who had killed before. Now, they had chosen her. For hours, they drove into the shadows. Then they stopped just outside of town near a clearing in the bushes. They ordered Alison out of the car. The men took turns raping her, mocking her, degrading her. When they were done, they started whispering. She heard the words, "She has seen our faces. She knows too much." And just like that, Alison knew they weren't going to let her live. Franz was the first to strike. He pulled out a knife and stabbed Alison in the abdomen over 30 times. Each thrust of the blade ripped deeper into her stomach, her liver, her intestines, until her body went limp. But they weren't done. Thunes then pulled her head back and with a different blade, slit her throat. Not once, twice. The cuts were so deep they severed her trachea and her esophagus. She stopped breathing. They dragged her into the brush and left her there, barely clothed, covered in blood, organs exposed. They kicked dirt over her body, walked away, and then drove off. By all accounts, she should have been dead. But Alison Botha? She wasn't done yet. She lay in the dirt for minutes, maybe hours. Time bent, but something inside her flickered, faint but fierce. A voice? A decision. She refused to die. Alison couldn't move. Her body lay crumpled on the ground, mangled, violated, abandoned. The men had driven away. The silence was absolute. Her vision blurred, her breathing shallow, her insides outside. She was still alive. Most people wouldn't have been. Most people couldn't have been. But Alison wasn't most people. She didn't think about the pain, or the odds, or what had just happened. She thought about her mother. She thought, my mom is going to find my body. And in that moment, something ancient surged through her. Not fear, not adrenaline, something older. The raw will to live. With her windpipe slashed and her abdomen torn wide, she crawled. Crawled across gravel, through brush, 1 inch at a time. She held her own head in place because it was barely attached. She used her other hand to keep her organs from spilling out. She didn't scream. She couldn't. She didn't cry. There was no time. She just moved. Every movement a rebellion, every breath defiance, every inch forward a miracle. Eventually, she reached the road and collapsed. Alison lay at the side of the road, drenched in blood, broken, barely conscious, but alive. And then, headlights. A young veterinary student named Tian Eilard was driving by. He saw something unusual in the road. He slowed. He stopped. He stepped out and approached carefully. What he found didn't seem real. A woman, barely recognizable as human, lying in the dirt. Her throat had been slit, her abdomen torn open, one eye swollen shut, the other wide open. And then she blinked. Alison was still conscious. Tian didn't hesitate. His training kicked in. He gathered her gently, doing everything he could to hold her organs in place. He kept her awake. He spoke softly to her. "You're going to be okay," he said. He didn't leave her side, and by the time the ambulance arrived, Alison had done something no one thought possible. She had survived the unsurvivable. Alison arrived at the hospital a shell of a human. She had lost nearly half the blood in her body. Her trachea had been severed, her abdomen torn open. Doctors called it a miracle, a true miracle. She spent days in intensive care. Her mother never left her side. Surgeons worked around the clock. But even through unimaginable pain, Alison remembered. She remembered their names. She remembered their faces. She told the police everything. Less than a week later, Franz Dutoit and Toons Kruger were arrested. Their plan had been simple: rape her, kill her, dispose of the body, then do it again. But Alison had survived, and thanks to her courage, both men received life sentences twice over. They will never walk free again, but Alison's story wasn't finished yet. Alison didn't just survive. She rose. With a tracheotomy scar across her throat and a belly stitched together like a road map, she chose something extraordinary. She chose to live. Not in bitterness, not in fear, but with purpose. As her body healed, Alison began telling her story, standing in front of audiences across South Africa and eventually the world, not to relive the horror, but to show what the human spirit can endure. She wrote a best-selling book, I Have Life, and became one of the most sought-after motivational speakers in the country. Her message was simple. Your greatest power is your choice. She chose life. She chose healing. She chose to become the hero of her own story. Today, Alison is a mother, a speaker, a beacon of resilience. She doesn't hide from the past. She uses it as fuel. Proof that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit is unbreakable. Alison Botha's story isn't just about survival. It's about rebirth, about refusing to be defined by what was done to you and rising anyway. If her story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's forgotten just how powerful they really are. This is just the first story in our series, Truthful and Wild Tales, Survival Redefined. Real people, unbelievable stories, unshakable strength. I'm Blushing Bree, and I'll be back soon with another story that will leave you breathless for all the right reasons. Until then, stay wild, stay brave, and never count yourself out.